Totally Football Show. Today, Premier League Match Day 26, the one where Thomas the Frank Engine reached the end of the line. We'll be looking back on his terminal performance and asking who's up next, and also checking on Tuesday's other games, which saw a close shave for Man United, but crucially no haircut as they drew 1-1 with West Ham. Chelsea leading with Leeds, but then fucking it up with Farke. And at the Hill Dickinson, confusion as the Cherries went on top of the Toffees, but it wasn't on a Sunday. All that coming up in this Totally Football Show. It's Wednesday, the 11th of February. Welcome to a brand new Totally Football Show. With us today, JJ Bull. Hey, JJ.
Hello.
Also back with us, Liam Twomey. Hello, Liam.
Pleasure to be back so soon.
Excellent. Fresh back from paternity leave. And making his first appearance with us here in the studio since returning from AFCON, Jay Harris.
Yeah, I wish it was in slightly different circumstances, this return, though.
Right. Although the circumstances to which you refer are ones that have prompted, I think, quite a bit of celebration in North London. I'm referring to Thomas Frank's departure from Tottenham Hotspur. Very a busy morning for you.
Yeah, a very busy morning. It's going to be a very busy day. As you said, Thomas Frank's been sacked this morning. They lost 2-1 to Newcastle United last night. It's been trending in this direction for a long time. I think when we look back at his time in charge, the writing's been on the wall ever since that defeat to Chelsea, where the atmosphere was toxic. I think they only had a XG of 0.05. Jed Spence and Mickey van der Ven walked past him at full time. It just felt like the disconnect between Frank, the fans, the players was on show then. It's just got worse ever since.
Yes, it's Gordon to Ramsey, and Thomas Frank is cooked. What was it, Jay, about their sixth defeat in their last 11, leaving them just 5 points above the relegation zone with no wins in their last 8 league games, their worst run since Juan de Ramos? What was it that prompted this decision this morning?
I think the manner of their performances over the last few months have been really limp. And Thomas Frank mentioned it last night. They do have an extended injury crisis, but that's only really kicked in the new year. As I mentioned a little bit earlier, you go back to November, December, performances have been bad. I feel like ever since they beat Leeds just before the October international break, it's just been on a downward slide. They've won 2 games at home out of 13 this season, and it's so crucial that you get the fans on board. And last night, there were chants about you getting sacked in the morning. There were chants about Mauricio Pochettino, and that's just so corrosive and so toxic to have that atmosphere. I think the final straw for a lot of the fan base was the Arsenal Coffee Cup incident, and unfortunately for Frank, I think so, just because they'd already not warmed to him, and to just have that image of him, the head coach of Tottenham, it was just such a bad contrast. Right. And when you compare him to Postecoglou before, for all of Ange's faults, he was a really good galvanizer. And there were so many times in press conferences where people would say, "Are you aiming for the top 4?" And he'd say things like, "I'm not aiming for the top 4, mate. I'm here to win trophies." And in Thomas Frank's press conference, he spoke about, we're going to lose games this year. We're in a little bit of a journey. And so I think straight away, there was a sense of Postecoglou was this great motivator. He was very charismatic. And Thomas Frank is also charismatic, but he just didn't get that across enough in press conferences. His messaging just wasn't quite there.
Right. The timing's really, I can't call it good, but the timing is perhaps an advantage. With Spurs out of the FA Cup, they have 2 weeks before their next fixture, which is the North London derby.
Exactly. I wrote on The Athletic last night that if there was a time for him to go, it would be now, because the players are due to be off for the next, I think, 4 or 5 days. So you've got an opportunity for them to decompress, and then you can get in an interim or a replacement, and you can give them a little bit of time. Whereas if Frank had stayed and the players had still had 4 or 5 days off, I mean, that just would have been an awful look. Something would have had to have changed. But it's interesting that last night he said he was convinced he was still going to be in charge for the Arsenal game. But after what happened when they played the Emirates in, I think it was November, they lost 4-1, they're absolutely humiliated. I think all Spurs fans were thinking we're going to get absolutely taken apart, and the board have clearly realised that it just had to change.
One big question now is who's going to take over? Don't know if there's any concrete thoughts about that. But one other question I had was, given that they finished 4th in the league phase of the Champions League, there's clearly talent in this team. With the right coaching, where do you think they could be in this Premier League?
Really good question. I think firstly, Newcastle have done well in the Champions League as well, and they're both struggling this season. It's something about juggling European football and Premier League football that for those teams they found particularly difficult. I think one issue with Spurs is that they've lost so much leadership over the last few years. and there's a definite void. And I think Christian Romero's actions over the last couple of weeks sort of speak to that. In the last couple of years, they've lost Harry Kane, Son Heung-min, Hugo Lloris, Eric Dyer, and they just need those figures who know how to bring a dressing room together. I think that's why they were really interested in Andy Robertson. Conor Gallagher is someone who's come in and straight away you can see he's got the right character. But I think there are lots of players in that squad where it's just a little bit of a mismatch. There are some very good young talented players, but they need to be set the right example by the senior pros. And I think there have been too many times this season where that's not been the case. For example, I think in the last 2 games, Xavi Simons and Archie Gray have probably been their best players. Xavi Simons 22, and he already looks like he's got a huge weight on his shoulders, and Archie Gray's only 19. You need the people to stand up. Romero's done it a few times, but he's also cost them too many times as well.
Might have been useful if he'd been there for that opening goal from Malik Chow. All right, but who do you think then? What's the word about what Tottenham's plan is going forward for the North London derby and beyond?
To be honest, I don't know what the plan is. I think we've consistently seen in the club's messaging that they wanted to give Thomas Frank as much time as possible. I think it was just before the West Ham United game in January where the CEO, Vinay Venkatesham, sort of spoke about this being long-term change and it's something they needed to maybe suffer a little bit of pain with, but they've come to the conclusion that they were giving their faith in the wrong individual. There are obviously going to be a few names floating around like Ryan Mason, who's been the club's interim before and obviously used to play for the club. I think we sort of have to wait and see. Johnny Heitinger, who was Liverpool's assistant last year, he only recently joined Spurs, so maybe he'll stay. But at this exact moment, I think we're still trying to work out who of Thomas Frank's backroom staff is staying, who's going with him, and sort of trying to pick up the pieces. But as you mentioned, that 10-day break before the Arsenal game means they don't have to immediately rush. They can sort of take the next day or two to sort of manage the fallout from this and then go from there.
Okay, all sorts of other names flying around, like Roberto De Zerbi, who's just resigned from his position at Marseille under similarly troubled circumstances, and of course the one that was aired most vociferously at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium on Tuesday night, Mauricio Pochettino. Is there any point in Spurs fans dreaming of a post-World Cup return?
I think so, because I've realised that Pochettino is sort of a spectre that looms large over the football club. He seems to come out at least once a year, once a season and make comments about, I want to come back to the Premier League, I want to come back to Spurs. He did it while Postecoglou was in charge. He did it on the High Performance podcast earlier this week. I'm sure he's not...
He hinted at it when he was at Chelsea.
Well, there you go. I'm sure he's not purposefully doing it to undermine the head coach in charge at that point, but it just doesn't come across as... That is the only way it comes across. I guess the issue for Spurs with a romantic return for Pochettino is the issue of the World Cup, because there's a short turnaround between the end of that World Cup and the new Premier League season starting. So would you be giving him the right platform to succeed if you're saying, thanks for, taking the US to the last 16 or the quarters or wherever. You've got no time off. You've got to jump straight into a pre-season tour, which I think is going to be in Australia. Then you've got the Premier League season. To me, that is also... That's a huge risk that you start off on the wrong foot anyways.
Jay, you've got a busy day ahead. Where can we keep a track of all the latest developments on this breaking story?
Stay across The Athletic, Twitter, Instagram. There's going to be videos, there's going to be written analysis, and just stay tuned. All
right. Possibly by the time you hear this, they might have somebody in place anyway. But Jay, in the meantime, many, many thanks for being with us today and have a super day.
Thank you. Sorry it was so short and sweet.
JJ, you're also packing your bags, aren't you? Because you're off on tour soon.
I'm doing a world tour of England
Yes.
this year. So many gigs.
Where are you starting?
Well, I've got a couple of festivals I'm playing in Bristol and Liverpool. Then I've got Southampton in May. I've got Luton, would you believe, in May. And then Birmingham. Manchester, which is almost sold out already, apparently, on the 29th. Right. So if you do want to come to Manchester...
Is there a place where somebody can find all those dates?
Yeah, I think if you go any of my socials, I've probably remembered to put a link on one of those there, and they should be there.
The first date is Bristol, 28th of March, is that right?
That is correct.
All right, excellent. Where's that going to be?
It's at a place called Strange Brew. It's part of a day festival they're doing there.
Oh, lovely.
It'd be good fun, yeah.
Extraordinary stuff there from Jay, not least the fact that with all the incredibly damning stats about Thomas Frank's reign, the thing that actually did for him was using an Arsenal-branded coffee cup.
It's all about image.
That's so true.
Feels a bit like way back when Ed Miliband ate the sandwich, just all wrong.
Yeah.
Just imagine if it was a Tory-branded sandwich, it would have been just completely
very,
fatal,
very true. Very, very true. All right, well, the numbers, as I say, abound. Thomas Frank averaging 1.12 points per game. As Tottenham Hotspur boss, that's the lowest rate of any Spurs manager in the Premier League. You've got some, I think, about expected goals, JJ.
I just looked up some numbers just now while Jay was talking, and I'm still not sure that's real. So their expected goals, it says, is 27.4. This is according to Opta. Their actual goals is 36. So it implies they've massively overperformed what they should have done, which means they're actually worse than the table says. Wow. They should probably be worse off than they are. I need to double check expected points, which I'm going to do right now. See if I can do it at the same time as I'm talking to you.
Okay.
Yeah, but this is the thing.
Make up a tune while you're doing that.
How many points do Spurs get? I don't know. And what I found is that Spurs basically have made watching football very, very unfun for their fans. And I found like a lot of football this year has not been that great. Spurs particularly are one of those. And like Newcastle Spurs are two of the teams that are the least fun to watch, I would say, this season. So I watched the first half of this almost like a sort of, not a masochist endeavour, but like just to see how bad it could possibly be. And Newcastle were fully at them, loads of energy. Spurs, not really at all like that. They were struggling to calm it down even.
Well, as a measure of how much Newcastle were all over Spurs, Jay was tweeting that they had the most corners. Hang on, let me get this stat exactly right. Where did he put it? Yeah, as a measure of how dominant Newcastle were on Tuesday night, Jay posted that they had 9 corners in the first half against Spurs, which is more than any other team has managed all season. And he posted that in the 31st minute. So it was pretty dominant stuff. That XG news, though, JJ.
Yeah, well, I have to...
That's right, X points.
Basically equal in expected points, but massively different on expected goals scored. So like the lack of goals, that's weird.
So they got the same points as their expected points?
Yeah, so like the actual performance says they're sort of roughly there, but then...
Are they massively overperforming their expected defence?
No, no, they're exactly level in that. It's just like they're not scoring... They are scoring goals that shouldn't be there, so...
Right.
It's odd.
It's a strange anomaly in the system.
Well, yeah.
Tottenham actually break the code of the Premier League. Break the code.
It's all nonsense now, I think. I've been going through all the XG stuff recently and then like watching shots, how they're valued. I'm like, it's not 0.2. That was way higher for me. Like an open goal and they give it like a 0.1. I'm like, what?
What's the expected anger from those expected points?
Oh, it's so high. I mean, I just don't know any Spurs fans. I think there's a couple of games ago, I can't remember which one it was, but it was like the apathy in the stadium. It was like people just didn't care even. You could feel, I remember Gary Neville talking about it, how it felt eerie and how it was, people just didn't really care that they were losing.
That was the Soccer Aid, in inverted commas, game against Man City, I think.
Oh, is that the one? Yeah, it could be.
Which saw that remarkable second half turnaround. And that's the kind of confusing thing, that there does seem to be every now and then a flash of a side in there. But we should talk a little bit about Newcastle, who, as JJ was mentioning, came in with problems of their own. 3 straight defeats, and I think they'd only won 2 on the road all season. So how happy should they be by what they showed on Tuesday night?
Yeah, it's a big win despite Tottenham's circumstances, I think. But it also speaks to the fundamental difference between the two clubs at the moment. And JJ was saying that they've been 2 of the more miserable watches, I think. But the one thing you can rely on Newcastle to bring is energy in every single game. That's what their identity is built on, even if it's not necessarily properly directed and they make mistakes and leave themselves open.
Well, it's like a positive and a negative, right? Because when they get it right, they're just impossible to play against. You're like, oh God, stop! It's relentless. But if it doesn't work. If you can't get revved up to that same 100% power bar level each time, it means that it doesn't really work, and then you lose a lot of the creativity and the magic and the guile and the improvisation that makes a lot of football games like fun to watch, I would say. So if you're just relying constantly on people like running at you, go, 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 smash, 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 it takes away some of the more gentle, artistic moments that I would like to see. Like Ronaldinho wouldn't work in that team.
No.
Yeah. And also you see it with Newcastle in the fact that they dropped.
Sorry.
Joe Linton would do his running for him, I think. I think he'd be happy to do that. But you see it with Newcastle in the last 20, 30 minutes of game sometimes when the energy dips a little bit. They haven't necessarily got much else to fall back on. So I think there is a good stat about them concede. They're one of 3 clubs that have dropped more points from winning positions than Chelsea, who we'll talk about a little bit later.
The other one would be West Ham, who we'll also be
West
talking
Ham
about.
and Bournemouth are the other 2 teams.
Spurs not in the FA Cup, having been beaten by Villa in the 3rd round. So they've got 2 weeks off before the Arsenal game, which could mark the earliest St Totteringham day in Premier League history, JJ, because Arsenal's 2 games before that in the league will be against Brentford and Wolves. And if they win those 2 and then beat Spurs, they'll be 36 points ahead with 33 points to play for. Woof. What else happened on Tuesday then in the first part of matchday 26? Well, league's two newest managers both had their win streaks interrupted. Man United, who needed a last-gasp Sesko equaliser to draw 1-1 at West Ham. Chelsea, who drew 2-2 at home to Leeds after being 2 goals up and cruising. Liam will be telling us about that one very, very shortly. Spurs, as we heard, losing 2-1 at home to Newcastle. And then Bournemouth came from a goal down to beat Everton 2-1 with teenage sensation Rayan on the score sheet once again. Just circling back to the Man United draw with West Ham, though, we're joined by Carl Anka, who was there at the London Stadium, Carl.
Hi, James.
Hello. Hello.
That was a very strange game on Tuesday.
It was quite a muted hello. Are you still digesting what happened on Tuesday night?
It was very stodgy. Simon Stone from the BBC asked Michael Carrick about the performance and used the word stodgy, to which Carrick went, good word. Nuno has managed several low in entertainment but positive for him performances against Manchester United in his time, not just for West Ham, but also at Nottingham Forest and previously to Wolverhampton Wanderers. So he's almost like is such a thing as a bogey manager?
Bogey manager.
A bogey manager
like
for a football team.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
Is it to do with low blocks, Carl, is it?
I think so. So West Ham they spent well enough in the January transfer window. They've now got a striker, which means Somerville and Bowen can play more as traditional nippy wingers, and it's a very, very compact 4-5-1. Sitting deep, block off all areas, no joy through the middle. And then if they do win the ball, which they can do because they can be quite physical at times, it's a quick ball out to Somerville, who's a pretty good 1v1 threat. So United can't do their tricky 1-2 passes through the middle. And obviously, because they spent the last 14 months playing with wing-backs, they didn't have wingers who can really stretch a play out wide. So for the better part of an hour, they just really had no idea of how to progress the ball.
All right, well, let's talk about the opening goal for West Ham, because that followed pretty much the pattern you were just talking about. A ball upfield, Jarrod Bowen winning that at Luke Shaw's expense, and then Thomas Souček finishing it. A nice breakaway goal.
Yes, a good breakaway goal. A really nice long pass from El Hadji Malick Diouf, a football player who I am a fan of. I think he's one of the better players in the bottom half. I think he had a very, very good AFCON with Senegal as well. He's one of those players that I'm sure more than one top 6 club is going, could we get him on a quote-unquote cheaper deal in case West Ham go down before he ends up costing 70, 80 million in a bit. Good long crossing, good athletic ability, tall for a fullback. I'm not sure if that makes sense. So tall for a quality player there. Souček was described as Mr. Helicopter by the stadium announcer at West Ham after his goal because of his celebration.
What did he do for his celebration?
He sort of just twirling towards freedom.
Okay.
Yeah, a real sickener of a goal for a Man United team that just really struggled to get a second gear for more than an hour. But United played poorly because West Ham made it so.
And it was an impressive performance from a West Ham team who are very much on the upward tick at the moment, JJ.
Yeah, I think what they've done is exactly what Carl says, is they've recruited really cleverly and mostly focused on bringing in pace so they can hit those counterattacks. So it seemed like Nottingham Forest, you had Alanga and Hudson-Odoi would be pinging in behind so you can make use of a striker. And then Tati Castellanos, yeah, that's it. Up top, is doing a lot more than what they had before. So they've got that threat now.
Somerville as well.
Somerville, yeah, he's been really good. He's a great player. Like exactly again, what Carl says is repeating Carl. But I think they knew what Man United have been doing recently, and so they just adjusted to take care of that. And it's as much as it's low block, it's also as soon as the ball got near the middle, they would be snapped onto them like really tight. So there was no real option. Then they'd lock off half the pitch. There's times when you had like 4 West Ham players in the vertical space blocking the other half of the pitch. So you couldn't really take the risky passes that you want to, because if you do take the risky pass, the fast lads are going to go and instantly ping up the way, and that's probably how you beat them. And there's some sort of inevitability. There's something about this Man United now, like the mindset has definitely changed. There's a thing in them, because as West Ham defended really well for most of the game, inevitably they sort of fell backward, like further and further from the 18-yard box to their own 6-yard box, and that's when United get in. And I really liked how Carrick did the old school Man United thing of just put on more forwards. You can play right back now, that's fine. Because that works. And you get the ball in the area. And like, I saw this clip where Ferguson's talking to Gary Neville and he says,
risk.
Yeah, and he says the reason they would always do it, they'd always like put another striker on and risk losing 2 or 3-0, was that like, if you get that late equaliser or a late winner, the difference in the dressing room afterwards, like the elation and the galvanisation that gives you, it takes you forward through the season. So now, like, they've got that goal as inevitability starts building, where if Man United are chasing a game, there's this feeling they might actually be able to get back into it now.
I'm not sure how much this will knock back that sense of elation under the new manager, but equally how much it'll mean for West Ham, who, coming into this match 6 points away from safety, were dreaming of really, literally halving that gap to Spurs. Instead, you get the last gasp heartbreaker from Sesko, Benjamin Sesko, with the second 90-plus crucial goal that he scored in a couple of weeks, no? Because he did it against Fulham.
He did. And the finish is exquisite. It's to have the quickness of mind to get across to the near post, and then also the deftness of touch. He doesn't wrap his body around it to generate power. He sort of recognises the pace of the ball already and just goes, if I can get a nudge on, I can get this top corner.
It's like he lets the ball hit his foot rather than he hits the ball.
Yes. One of my frustrations watching Sesko this season is he can be a bit too nice. He's got almost so many finishes in his locker. Sometimes you can see him take an additional second trying to go, okay, which one do I want to do here? Where I'm sort of screaming at him in that voice you often do as you get closer and closer to middle age. You're like, just put your foot through it. Stop being subtle. Whereas Sesko's joy is he is capable of these really, really subtle touches, these really subtle finishes. His goal against Fulham was a sort of touch, turn, spin manoeuvre he's done in multiple matches. I said this on Talk of the Devils. So he did it against Newcastle right towards the end of the year. He's done it against Burnley. He tried it once against Nottingham Forest. And he did it again prior to the goal against West Ham. And this is something he keeps trying to do, which is I'm going to spin and get the shot off. And so the shot against West Ham, he's getting now the motion and the sort of Premier League pace on it now. And now it's this case of get it on target more. Really, really start challenging the keeper more. So a talent there, someone who can definitely, to my mind, finish the season with double-figure goals. And I think he's now, it's a pronounced gap for Man United before their next game against Everton on 23rd. I would not be surprised if he's in the starting lineup against Everton.
Right, that would be his first start under Michael Carrick, although he has notched up 6 goals in 7 matches since Ruben Amorim departed from Carrington. So Everton coming up, which is a concern, is it? Given that we've been talking about will Carrick's winning run survive contact with a low block team, and look what happened. It didn't. So yeah, Everton, you imagine, might employ similar tactics. Are they in a position to do that?
It's a David Moyes team in that if anyone's really good at coaching a 4-5-1, it's going to be David Moyes, and sort of stodge up the middle and slow things down. And I think Everton have recruited quite smartly in the January transfer window to replace the Jack Grealish as well. I think Tyreek George, there's a player there, perhaps not a top 6 player that Chelsea need right now, but there's certainly someone who can definitely offer a transitional threat. So the good thing for Carrick and his coaching staff, for Steve Holland, for Jonathan Woodgate, for Johnny Evans, for his analysts as well, is they're staying in Manchester over this break, and I'm sure they'll make some tactical alterations and go, right, Nuno probably figured us out. We need to find something new and something more experimental when we return. And I wouldn't be surprised if one of those things is Sesko up top, and then maybe 2 or 3 adjustments with the fullbacks, or how the fullbacks try and play as well. Because this Everton team is sensible in a way that very few teams in the Premier League seem to be right now.
Yeah, although it didn't work out for them on Tuesday night against Bournemouth. Thank you so much, Carl. Just a quick word, JJ, on the Hammers, who, despite that late heartbreak of Chesko's equaliser, have picked up 10 points from their last 15 available. They do move to 2 points from safety and Nottingham Forest, at least until Forest play on Wednesday night. Are they staying up?
I don't know. I think they've got momentum now, and I think other teams around them do not.
Right.
But the problem with always in football is that each game changes the narrative of it, and so I think they've probably got enough in them. They've got enough good players that they shouldn't go down. So they should be all right with it. But the ones I thought would be closest to them, like Leeds, I think would be closer to them, but they're not. And they should actually be higher up the table according to expected points and all that sort of nonsense.
Calling this answer stodgy.
Yeah, I'm going to just...
I feel West Ham have momentum, but I think they've squandered their most winnable run of fixtures. In particular, that defeat to Wolves is going to be one that is already one that West Ham fans will go... No, you shouldn't be doing that.
I'm inclined to think they're staying up for purely narrative reasons, because the bottom 5 of the Premier League has been shaping up in perfectly for a Nuno revenge arc against Nottingham Forest,
and Spurs. Against Nottingham Forest.
Choose your own adventure, Nuno, in terms of which former club you relegate. But the reason why those clubs are down there is they don't pick up points at a very good rate. So West Ham, I actually thought their reaction to that late goal was really encouraging because they were absolutely devastated and so surprised. They obviously felt they had the game completely under control. And that suggests to me just a level of buy-in to the plan and what Nuno's doing and the identity that they've built that you just don't really see from many teams down the bottom there. So I think there are enough games for them to get out of this.
There's a clarity to Nuno teams that doesn't really exist with some other teams at the bottom. I'd really struggle to tell you what Robert Edwards is trying to do with Wolves. Nottingham Forest are trying to play like a Sean Dyche team, but with limited success. Spurs are big shrug. What was Thomas Frank trying to do? Whereas West Ham, they're trying to play like a Nuno team, which is stodge it up, hit you really hard on the counter. The games aren't going to be high in quality. They're going to be towards the end of the match of the day. But if you're not paying attention, you're going to get rocked. And maybe, I don't know. It'll be close, but I think they've just left too many points on the table a little bit too early on in the season.
So much happening Tuesday night in the Premier League. Chelsea's game with Leeds had plenty going on in it. Alien.
It was actually a really fun game to watch. I think it was some of the best football for about 60 minutes that Chelsea have played all season.
Was that because of the kind of the Pedro and Palmer double act getting back underway?
Yeah, I think they had a really great balance of the positional structure that was clearly in place under Maresca and which Rosenior is trying to continue and build upon. But there was also a freedom in the final third that just wasn't there under Maresca. And I think you can almost measure the health of Chelsea's attack and the enjoyment of their attackers by the number of first-time flicks around the corner that were going on, particularly from Cole Palmer, but also João Pedro, Estevao. Maybe not quite as involved in the first half, but kind of had his moments.
Right.
But Palmer in particular just looks almost back to himself. I know he scored 3 penalties in the last 2 games, and that kind of pads the stats slightly in terms of goals.
And he also didn't score a goal from open play, which, I would have put a very different perspective on Tuesday's performance. But he did put the ball through for the opening goal in kind of classic partnership with Pedro fashion, for João Pedro to open the scoring. And then Pedro, who gets pushed over from behind for the second game in a row.
It's my favourite one of his skills that he does, where a defender just pushes him over in the box for no reason.
Oh, it drives me wild.
He must have just like an irresistible back to centre-back.
But he knows it's coming. He's not going down like that. That's not shoving him to the ground, obviously. He's so strong and massive.
But it is just a very obvious two-hand push.
I know.
2 games in a row that you're just not going to get away with. If you do that to someone playing five-a-side,
there's no way that you'd be giving them a free kick. There's no way. I think that rule should apply to a lot of these things.
The Premier League should be self-refereeing in those situations.
If you applied it in five-a-side, would the crowd agree with you or not? Is what you should do, I think.
All right.
You play five-a-side in front of a crowd.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
Sure, JJ draws a crowd for pretty much everything he does. JJ is now a firm fixture in a lot of people's top 5 year-ending Spotify reviews, JJ.
Yeah, somehow, that's happened, yeah.
Okay, what's your most popular track, by the way, on Spotify?
I think it's still probably Chris Wood, but the Adriano 99 Shot Power song seems to do very well.
Right.
Especially at live gigs, people sing that one. It's nice.
Carl was just eulogising over your Bergkamp. If Bergkamp can do it, so
that
can
nice?
you.
Yeah, I love that. It's really nice. Yeah.
If you're unaware, listener, JJ improvises songs about football and footballers and enjoys a large degree of success doing it.
When you say large, I think...
Yeah, you do.
I think I will perform my expected songs in a certain way. Some of them are good. I mean, I was improvising them all, but now I'm trying to make them actually good. And so I've accidentally, not hamstrung myself, but I'm now overthinking it, which is a silly thing to do because it was working. It's just getting them out. It's difficult. And there's some sort of parallel we can draw with some manager, I think, somehow here. Hopefully I've given you a good segue to the next bit.
Well... Was Liam Rosenior thinking too much about getting a good record? Continuing his good record, I guess that might be one link. But Chelsea were on track to do that. And had I said to you about, 65 minutes in that they weren't going to take 3 points from this game, 2-0 up and absolutely cruising, what would you have thought, Liam?
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't have been totally shocked just because this has been part of Chelsea's identity all season. They've now dropped 17 points from winning positions in the Premier League. So they do switch off, as Rosenia said afterwards. They don't necessarily manage those positions very well. And the turning point was really having got an inexplicable penalty in terms of mistake from the defensive team. They gave one back with Moises Caicedo committing just a really silly foul. I mean, this is part of who Caicedo is. He backs himself to win the ball in situations where other players just wouldn't even try and go for it. And most of the time, he ends up on the right side of that. Or the worst he does is give away a foul in a non-dangerous position. But here, I don't think any other Chelsea player tries to make that tackle in the penalty area. And you could, even watching on the TV, you could feel the atmosphere change and the demeanour of Chelsea's performance change after that goal.
So did that get into their heads? And is that why that extraordinary equaliser came about?
Yeah, I think so. I think you saw from the restart from the Leeds penalty that Chelsea stepped off. They'd been pressing really aggressively for the whole game, winning the ball back against Leeds in good areas, and they just dropped. They dropped off, and that allowed Leeds the time and space to start putting testing balls into their penalty area and really examining a centre-back pairing that we haven't seen much this season, which was Trevor Chalobah, who starts almost every game, but also Joshua Champong, who's very talented, but is still 19, has not played much football recently, doesn't necessarily have the clearest understanding with Rob Sanchez in goal. And Leeds' game plan was just to create a bit of uncertainty.
How would you describe their equaliser?
Absolutely farcical. It was one of the worst goals that I've seen Chelsea concede in quite a long time.
It's like a 90s VHS highlight, wasn't it?
Yeah, or like a kind of FIFA glitch that would prompt a rage quit. Just where a defender just completely stops. Like you're pressing the clear button and they just won't clear. And then
it's rigged.
Yeah, the goalkeeper just moves into an inexplicable position as well. It was just complete cross wires between Rob Sanchez and Joshua Champong. There was no clear plan for what Chelsea could do. And the ball gets rolled over to Noah Okafor, and it was from that point on, you felt that Chelsea had a big mental adjustment to make to try and win the game again.
And yet they could so very well have done that.
Yeah, and I think that was testament to how well they were actually playing through Leeds all game long. There was a lot more incision in their possession than I think Chelsea fans have seen under Maresca. And the move, which creates the chance for Palmer, is fantastic. It's a lovely little give and go, a flick from Malo Gusto, a great low cross. Palmer times his run perfectly. The cross takes out Carl Darlow. It's all there for him. But the cross is maybe a little bit too fast, a little bit too high. And in that split second, Palmer doesn't angle his foot quite right. And it was quite funny that everyone in the stadium had the same face, which was Cole Palmer's face, which is just the maximum extension of your jaw. Just the silent scream, but of surprise as much as anguish. No one could believe that he, of all players, would miss that chance.
They stay fifth, but Liverpool can reduce the gap, and Brentford can too. Brentford, who are up against Arsenal, though, at home on Thursday, when those matches come round. Liverpool, who are away at Sunderland, though, Wednesday night, which would be a tough one.
I just think it was a big missed opportunity for Chelsea, because especially when you then flick over to the Manchester United game and they were having so much trouble against West Ham. Even with that late equaliser, Chelsea could have leapfrogged them and built on that growing sense of momentum under Rosenia. I still feel like there's a good feeling around the club at the moment, around the squad, but it is a setback.
Okay. Not for Leeds, though, who've now only had 2 defeats in the last 13 matches, scored here with only 2 shots on target, and came away with a point from informed Chelsea without Dominic Calvert-Lewin in their lineup because he was not well.
They are an impressively unpleasant team to play, I think. I was particularly impressed with just how seemingly random Jayden Bogle's role is. Like, he starts at right back, but he appears everywhere and just causes problems. He seemed to be playing up front half the time for Leeds when they had the ball. And even at 2-0, they never gave up. They never stopped pressing Chelsea. They never stopped making them uncomfortable, believing they would maybe get a mistake, and they did.
They did. Up the table, they march. Very good. The one other game from midweek, or from Tuesday's action, was Everton against Bournemouth, which saw Everton take the lead through a penalty, a very nicely taken penalty from Njai. But then Bournemouth came steaming back in the second half. Rayan, who you're a big fan of, Liam, with his second goal in 2 matches. And then it was Amin Adli who made it 2-1 before Everton went down to 10 men after Jake O'Brien was shown a red for pretty clear denying of goal-scoring opportunity on Adli.
Yeah. There can't really be any complaints on that one, but I think it was really interesting to see how good Rayan looked again. Been really, really impressed with him since he's arrived in the Premier League, particularly how physically and athletically ready he looks to impact these games at 19. And I think obviously it's a small sample size. Lots of players have started well and then had a bit more trouble. But if he is as good as he's looked so far, I think there could be some big Premier League clubs that maybe regret not getting on that particular train earlier.
He's the next Semenyo, says Liam Twomey.
Well, 6'2" winger who can maybe play in the future across the front line. You can see
he could play to the middle, definitely. Yeah,
you could see why they targeted him, and the way he scored that header. It looked like a natural skill.
He's only the third teenager to register a goal or assist in each of his first 3 Premier League appearances. The other 2 being, go on, JJ, I'll be amazed if you get these 2.
Say it again. So
teenagers, 2 teenagers prior to Rayan had registered either a goal or an assist in each of their first 3 Premier League appearances.
Michael Owen
is not correct.
I'm so bad at this.
Wayne Rooney
is also not correct.
Give me my next one.
God all day. One of them came from Ligue 1, from the south end of Ligue 1, and scored an amazing goal against Liverpool on his debut. And after an initially bright start, tailed off very, very rapidly. I'm talking about Anthony Martial.
Of course.
The other featured for any number of clubs all over the world. Is currently managing in Hungary. Do we know?
It's not Nicholas Anelka, is it?
No, managing in Hungary, has played for any number of clubs, all of which he supported as a lad, and is currently managing
Robbie Keane.
It is Robbie Keane. It is Robbie Keane. Very good. If you enjoyed Cole Palmer's miss, what did you make of Tierno Barry's? I felt this was even more egregious, actually.
Yeah, he's a bit further out.
But there's less pace on the ball as well.
Yeah, the only thing I could think of looking at the replay is he maybe gets a slight nudge from Evan Nilsson as he's on one leg, but most Premier League players I don't think would be affected by that enough to miss as badly as he did.
There you go. Costly miss for Everton, who go down yet again at the Hill Dickinson. We'll find out what that all means in terms of the standings when the rest of round 26 is played. But before we leave you today, let's quickly catch up on events in 1 or 2 other Premier League adjacent leagues or divisions. First of all, JJ, how about that Scottish title race? Anything interesting happening there?
Really fun. Hearts keep winning games. They keep keeping up they're setting the pace at the top of the table. They've got, I think is it 6 points ahead now? I'll just double check that.
Of
6
Rangers.
points.
So Tuesday night, they had the Hearts Hibs derby.
Yeah,
Does that have a special name?
Well, the Edinburgh derby.
Okay, that'll do.
Maybe I'm letting my country down by not knowing what the other bit is. But so a game, I didn't manage to see this, it was on Premiere, but I've watched the highlights and read about it, and I've heard that it was not fantastic quality. I then looked at the numbers, and the numbers of like 0.6 versus 0.38 XG suggests that is exactly the way to review the game. Neither team really passing the ball much. There's like around about 300 passes each. Okay. For context, Man United West Ham, Man United has 660 passes. So I think it's a bit of a end-to-end sort of stodgy affair, which makes sense because Derek McInnes' teams, he's the manager of Hearts, tend to be very hard to beat. And he has good characters and he relies on kind of individual talent in the final third, and that's how they get goals. They find a way to win, Derek McInnes' teams, which is exactly what they did. They scored in the 88th minute. Thomas Magnusson, an Icelandic midfielder playing for Hearts, taps it in from inside the 6-yard box, and you can see the elation, the pressure kind of lifted in the stadium. McInnes runs along the touchline, kind of trying to do high fives with everyone there. He's pointing at ball boy. He's like, yes, really exciting. It's funny because like in Scotland, I think I've got loads of friends who support different clubs in Scotland, as you'd imagine. Now, I would like Hearts to do it because I'd like to break the duopoly. I think it would be fantastic. Lots of Aberdeen fans do not want that. For some reason, they don't want Hearts to win it
because they were the last lot who won it before.
Well, it's like if someone's going to do it, I want my team to do it,
right?
Not Hearts. And there's all other sort of the politics is the wrong word, but like you don't want Hearts to do it, especially, you know. But then in Edinburgh, obviously, you're going to have Highbees are not going to want Hearts to do it. And then in Glasgow, I think a lot of fans who I know who are Rangers or Celtic fans. I mean, they are around the country, but I think some of them want Hearts to do it because they want to break it up. They're getting bored, especially Celtic fans.
Yeah.
And then I think most of the rest of the country would be like, yes, come on. But it's weird because you can't. I thought it would be everyone united, like, come on, Hearts, I want this to happen.
Like a Leicester.
Yeah, and I don't know if it is. It depends who you ask in different places. It's interesting.
Well, what I think is proof, especially heartwarming about their title run, is that they went off to this brilliant start and then got pegged back, and it felt more than once in the course of the season that the bubble had burst, that they turned back into a pumpkin or whatever, and the big boys had kind of re-established their superiority, as people were predicting they would do over the course of a season. But 6 points the gap between Hearts and Rangers, and fully 9 points from Celtic, who are third. Celtic, though, do have 2 games in hand on the Edinburgh side, and Rangers have a game in hand as well.
Yeah, and Celtic have been a bit more sensible recently with Martin O'Neill coming in. I mean, you saw what happened with Wilfred Nauncey. That is one of the most bizarre things I've seen in Scottish football for a long time. It was quite funny. Like, I feel bad for him having been chucked out. He was there for about 27 or 37 days, something. It was some crazy low number.
Less time than the interim manager had been in charge before him.
Something like that. And there's something that I really like about Martin O'Neill from, like, it feels retro having Martin O'Neill back, having watched Celtic in the 90s and the 2000s and everything. And just doing a really good job. You don't need to have a system and XG to be able to do it. You can just be a really good manager, a good coach, players in the right places, drive them, teach them that they're Celtic players and they should be beating them, and suddenly they look a lot better. And like underlying numbers, you can look at them at the end of a season, they tend to correlate. And Celtic have been massively underperforming. Hearts have been scoring far more than they should have been, but they seem to be built on a really strong defence, which ties back into what McInnes does. They're hard to break down, and that's why they've been so good and being able to get things out of games. So it's genuinely really exciting. Rangers seem to be playing much better under Danny Röhl now, and it's really fun. It's been one of the most fun leagues to watch for me. I've been loving watching the Scottish Premiership this season.
Right, maybe not follow the whole game, but from afar check the results.
Well, I couldn't. I was having to watch.
No,
I was told to watch
from the way you described it. Yeah. Anyway, by the way, Lim, you were mentioning Leicester, or we both were, in fact. This is the 10-year anniversary of them doing a Leicester, but circumstances...
How did they mark it?
How did they mark it? So last week they got deducted 6 points, which has put them in the Championship relegation zone. Was that financial irregularities?
Yeah, I mean, there have been quite a few of those in recent years at Leicester, particularly in their seasons in the EFL. Let's say they've pushed the boundaries, and then some. Yeah.
Then on Tuesday night, while all that Premier League and Edinburgh Derby stuff was going on, they took on Southampton, and much better news, they went 3-0 up. How did that one finish, though, Liam?
No need to track it from there, I'm sure. 4-3.
4-3 Saints. Yikes.
Remarkable.
Quite illustrious relegation race. You've got Portsmouth down there as well. West Brom not far off the bottom 4. But yes, all sorts of drama in store in the Championship. Watford, by the way, who are currently in 12th spot in the second tier, have a brand new manager. He is the 23rd new Hornets manager in the 13 and a half years that the Pozzos have been in charge. Do you know who it is, JJ?
It's me. I am the next Watford manager.
That's next week.
It's Ed, yeah, exactly. It's Ed Still.
Ed Still.
The brother of Will Still.
Yes.
Who still has the will. Yeah, I don't know anything about Ed Still, so I can't tell you anything.
What's that we're hearing in the background? It's Will still
have the will.
Have the will. You're one of your many really popular tracks.
That's a little less popular, actually.
Is it?
It's shocking. I mean, it's not popular at all, I would say. But I am working on it.
Okay, that was that was almost a commission from a social media, wasn't it?
Yeah, I take ideas from people,
right,
and steal them.
And the nice thing, Liam, I'm not sure if you've ever watched this, is you can watch JJ's brain working in real time as he tries to construct the song around.
It's a horrible place
Will
to be.
Will still have the will. Are you going to do one about
the next Watford manager?
No, Ed Still. Is your Ed still in the game?
I already have a song.
Do you?
I am the Watford manager. Yeah, I've got it. I've been working on it for ages. It's one of the ones I've been overthinking for a while because it's just to be simple.
Well, also the lyrics keep changing week by week, I imagine.
Well, that's the thing. If I don't get them out in time, and I need to have a bit of a life as well outside of constantly working and then do my own work at home. But in terms of Ed Still, I don't know the first thing about him other than that he knows Will Still. So
he's his brother.
Yeah. Knows him quite well, I think. Yeah. So hopefully,
I hope it doesn't involve listing the Watford managers.
It does not,
because that would be quite an undertaking.
There's your first two verses.
Well, I wanted to do a sort of Spartacus thing, no, I am the Watford manager this week. But I mean, what amount of managers they've gone through? Because I went through the Wikipedia.
Literally
all
23.
There's so many.
Yeah.
And you look at all the different managers and go, I remember him. But it was only like last month,
I've always had a soft spot for Watford in that sense because they have made the Chelsea beat feel like a beacon of stability. One of the few clubs capable of doing that.
I always thought it was so interesting with that as well because like Miles Jacobson at Sport Interactive, the guy who makes Football Manager, he's a massive Watford fan, huge. So they've always got sponsors with them. So I think he's often at the games and I'd imagine, I'm making this up, I can't remember, I'm sure he talks to them at some sort of level where they'd be able to take some of his, the network he has, surely he'd be able to impart some sort of wisdom, as in maybe keep a manager longer than 4 months.
Right.
That sort of thing might work.
The Pozzo's ownership kind of CV has always seen them hiring and firing at a fair old rate, although they have calmed down a little bit with Udinese, not that much, but a little bit. Well, we'll see how Ed Still gets on at Vicarage Road right now, though. That's it for this Totally Football Show. Many thanks to Carl Anka and Jay Harris, who were with us earlier on, to JJ and Liam, to Jake and Charlie in the booth, and you, listener. We'll be back Thursday morning, actually, with all the Wednesday action and a big look forward to the fourth round of the Cup. For now, though, from all of us here, it's goodbye. The Totally Football Show podcast is available 3 times a week, bringing you all the football news you could reasonably be expected to care about. We've got views, we've got stats, we've got analysis, we've got some of the best football writers around, and the whole thing is absolutely free. So have a listen on Spotify or Apple Podcasts or all the usual places by clicking on the link below.